moving on, I would like for us to x-ray Nigeria's livestock industry and the immense potential it holds for economic diversification and job creation. My guest is set for this conversation, and he and I will talk about the investment opportunities, the challenges that subside, as well as some of the innovative solutions required to unlock the sector's full potential and make Nigeria a major player in global livestock production. Let me formally welcome to the program Professor Mohammed Kuta Yahaya, an agricultural expert from the University of Ibadan. Professor Kuta Yahaya was the secretary to the Presidential Implementation Panel for the new Livestock Development Ministry. Prof, welcome back to Insights. I know that you just got back from Brazil. Having in the studio, you must be tired. Thank you so much for graciously accepting to be in our studios. Welcome to Insight, Prof.
No, I cannot be tired, Nnamdi, because what I saw in Brazil should rather
you're still overwhelmed.
Or Nigerian has all the potentials to do better.
And that's what we want to talk about, Prof. Is that even possible? I mean, I look at some of the latest figures in terms of percentages and how much the livestock sector here, in Nigeria contributes to our economy. Some data that I saw says it contributes about 17% of agricultural GDP and maybe a token 5% to the national GDP. But I know advocates like yourself, and considering what you just saw in Brazil, that is overwhelming for you, I know people like you must believe that the potential here is even greater. So if that is the case, what gives you the confidence that, yes, we are now on track, perhaps on track, and does this perhaps derive from the current policy and regulatory framework and landscape occasioned by the president's interest, specific to the livestock sector? What are some of these reforms that you're seeing that just might spur, these investment focus in Nigeria's livestock sector and significantly enough to boost investors' confidence?
Well, I think Mr. President has done a great job for Nigeria as the statesmanship is concerned. He's taking the banner and the flag of Nigeria higher, and he has raised the bar because he's bringing to focus the business dimensions to agriculture, because we cannot continue to be dependent on subsistence agriculture for any meaningful impact. And the livestock sector over the years has been abandoned or not given the attention it deserves as the crop sector comparatively. So I believe Nigeria is going to benefit immensely by Mr. President's commitment, by Mr. President's leadership as the Secretary of the Implementation Reforms Committee. The reforms are taking its route, and Mr. President is the chairman of the committee himself, co-chaired by eminent scholar Professor Atai Rujega, and a patriot of monumental dimension. I am very, very confident that when you bring people like Professor Atai Rujega into the stream of things, is like your reforms are likely going to have substantial impact. And so Mr. President is deliberative, and I'm very confident with his leadership, because he created the Ministry of Livestock Development.
Yes, which of course was a recommendation from your committee. You and your colleagues actually put that forward.
He is very deliberative, and he has given all the support to make it work. Now he invited a number of people to join him into G20 in Brazil to have and to understudy some entities, ventures in Brazil. And after we saw some of those flourishing entities, we were blown away, and we feel that the only way to go is for Nigeria to explore the gold mine that the livestock holds for the rest of the world, because protein content and consumption is ever increasing, and the demand globally is amazing. So I believe Mr. President deliberate move towards this sector is for him to place Nigeria in the right position in terms of contribution to agricultural GDP, in terms of food and nutrition security, and in terms of prosperity. Because from day one, when he inaugurated our committee on July 9th, 2024, he categorically stated that he saw a window of opportunity in every challenge. Yes, there are issues of other farmers' conflict,
True.
but for him, he said he see a window of opportunity. And he didn't leave even the investors in doubt in Rio de Janeiro, where he met with investors. He said, yes, there are challenges, but he sees opportunities for them to explore. So I believe Mr. President is brutally frank, and he doesn't mince his words, but he's committed and is focused on this agenda. So he said, yes, there are problems, but that notwithstanding, you can create opportunity out of problems. And then he envisaged prosperity from day one, he told us. And now, when we go to Brazil and we saw the kind of prosperity associated with livestock industry is amazing.
Prof,
Simply amazing.
I would take you up on that. Some of what you saw in Brazil and link that to, the letter of intent that the Nigerian government signed with one of the biggest one of the biggest players in the meat industry. I will do all of that. And then, of course, you've alluded to the prospects, and what the future holds for us in this industry, in this sector. I would like for us to take a couple of steps back, and I'd like your thoughts on a couple of issues that, which of course also relates to unlocking the sector's potential for a prosperous future. It stands to reason that we must, on our part, substantially address, some of the subsisting challenges that impact productivity, for instance, whether it is in the dairy or in poultry or in fishery or indeed any of the other subsectors. Prof, how tactfully, or tactically should government or government reforms in this instance, championed by the ministry, which incidentally, you are a party to its development. How should this ministry now champion issues like livestock growth, issues like health, husbandry, and even issues like the welfare of individuals engaged in livestock production? And make these issues a priority if we are to fully unlock this potential, this greatness that we see in this sector.
Well, the good news is that on our team, in the visitation that we had to a number of industries in Brazil, who was the Minister of Livestock Development, Idi Mukhtar, who is an expert in his own right, is a practitioner. He's not a theoretician. He understands the game, and that from the conversation we had, he was on top of his game through the kind of knowledge that he has brought to the conversation. So it's so gratifying that Mr. President has not only put a round peg in a round hole, but he's also done well to have also given us the opportunity to see best practices in Brazil. So from that, you can see that the issue of productivity in both dairy and beef is a function of genetic engineering.
Okay.
And that if we have to do that, we need to also learn from the coordinating center called Embarapa in Brazil, that is unarguably the reference point for every scientific discovery and for policy directions in terms of agriculture and even livestock sector. So we have to borrow a leaf from that and make sure that Mr. President, will pay attention to funding research. R&D is a global, issue in terms of if you want to address all the issues that you have highlighted. It's not beyond our scientists. We have the best centers of excellence in terms of research in Nigeria. For example, NAPRI in Zaria has produced the Shika Brown, the best egg-laying, chicken that is still on record, that has done well. In INVORM, the National Institute of Veterinary Research was created to cater for the entire West African sub-region in terms of development of vaccines. In a similar vein, our universities and other research institutes have been, incapacitated because of lack of equipment and facilities to conduct research that can be competitive globally. I remember NIFO in Benin was established around 1956, and their counterpart from Malaysia were having exchange of ideas.
True.
And when they come, they debate, they exchange ideas. The scientists from Malaysia will be invited to Benin. Those from Benin will be invited to Malaysia annually to showcase scientific discovery. Behold, the Malaysians moved on, developed cultivars that are not only high-yielding, but monumentally cover the entire space of Malaysia. Now, Indonesia had to overtake Malaysia from the neighborhood because they have more land. Look at us in Nigeria. 1% of Nigeria has not been utilized for oil palm production. We were exporting oil palm before, but today Nigeria is importing oil palm from Malaysia. Malaysia has moved even beyond using oil palm for domestic use, but they have now converted it to other industrial purposes.
True.
The same thing in Brazil. Ethanol, product of sugar, cane, molasses and other ingredients of livestock production are massively being produced. Recently, the former governor of Niger State visited a plantation, Umar Bago, where you have 450,000 hectares of sugarcane plantation. Another one, 250,000 hectares. Massive scale of production. And he is now replicating the same with Niger State. He has even gone ahead to even sign an agreement to revitalize the Nigerian Sugar Development Council so that Nigeria can be back on the roadmap of sugarcane production. So what I'm saying in a nutshell is that our scientists need to be equipped, need to be encouraged, need to be supported in terms of funding, in terms of equipment to do research that are consistent with our agroecological challenges. For example, NCRI Badegi, because of the support it received, has developed cultivars. Faro 44, for example, is very consistent for north central agroecological zone because it is, high yielding, drought resistant, and compatible to the environment, and is the most popular with farmers in the zone. Sure. So why not for all other crops from different agroecological zones so that you can increase performance? For example, shea nut now, NIFO Benin is conducting research on shea because Nigerian shea is the best in the world. And then what they are doing is to use the wild ones that will grow you need a gestation of 10 years, 15 years before you start producing.
I reckon, Prof, that while these and all of these examples you've cited may relate to crop, I reckon that research can also do well to enhance productivity, especially because in terms of livestock, for instance, we're looking at issues like low breed stock, and that's probably why that impacts productivity, impacts output at the end of the day.
Yes, well, from example we have seen in Brazil, through their genetic engineering processes, they have come with species.
Let's talk about
the resilience, the doggedness, rugged nature or resilience of their own product. And then we have similar climatic condition with Brazil. So we can adapt and do the same in Nigeria.
Prof, let me quickly take you to something that the president said, a statement he made in Brazil there at the signing of that letter of intent that you and I talked about between, like I said, the Nigerian government and JBS, I think JBS. It's one of the top 3 largest meat processing companies
in the world.
Mm-hmm. The president said, and I'd like to quote the president said there, he said, "What we're doing right now is that we're solving the problem that afflicted humanity in that part of Africa. Clashes between farmers and migrating cows that have cost some lives and bloodshed when there is a modern, civilized way to solve these problems and even bring a successful economy out of it. We are trying to turn a situation of tragedy, hopelessness, into economic opportunity, see through problems and see the opportunities that are involved in it." End of quote. I mean, Prof, over the decades, we have had promises of opportunities that will benefit farmers and herders. and end this perennial conflict, that we see across parts of our country. Are you more hopeful now, Prof, than ever before that we might just be on the verge of doing just that? And, how would greater investment like what you saw in Brazil and perhaps maybe FDIs into Nigeria help us in this direction?
Yes. JBS is a classical case study of a successful enterprise with 70-year-old track record in beef production, processing, and exporting to the rest of the world. The largest producer and exporter in Brazil, export to America, Australia, China, and other Latin American countries. JBS today reported live, I was witnessing the report of the chief executive officer of JBS. He said their turnover in 2024 is $79 billion. What's the revenue of some countries? What's the total annual of some countries in the world? One entity. So therefore, he said they have, outgrowers spread across Brazil within a radius of 50 kilometers that produce and supply to their distance. They give specifications, they monitor, they monitor not only the traceability of what they are producing, but the health status, and indeed they subject them to all kind of quarantine and treatment before it gets to their industry. Okay. And they are processed and exported to the rest of the world. And those people, they are kept in the loop of production. So the issue of producing and running around to look for a market is not the issue. So what the Mr. President is bringing to Nigerian doorstep is that very soon, you and I and you and everybody will become a livestock producer because you have a ready-made off-taker. You don't need to stress yourself.
I was going to talk about value addition, processing and value addition. Just so we,
you see the
we
production,
increase the life shell of some of these.
Look.
Shell life, I beg your pardon.
You are talking about cold chain processes.
Indeed.
Would they produce, put into cold chain, export in the cold chain vehicles that will last for 2 months or 1 month on the sea, and they are all in cold chain, and then they are also processing and putting them inside cans for countries. Different countries require different type of bodies, of some like part of the ribs, some like part of the bone. So look, different type of products. It's like a whole gamut of
opportunities. And different opportunities in the value chain as well.
Yes, including pasture production. There are species of napier grass and other kind of alfalfa and others that are well performing in Nigeria. For example, alfalfa that is in high demand in Saudi Arabia was produced around Mokwa in Niger State at an experimental level. They were demanding, from UAE, 8% protein content. Mokwa yielded 15%. Yeah. They sent it back to them. That was further valued. They got average of 13%. So it's like people can go into pasture production, make money, and then prosperity limitless for Nigeria. That's what they say.
I want your thoughts on a whole lot of issues, but my director just told me we're out of time.
Wow.
We've actually passed our 20 minutes mark, which was scheduled for this segment of the program. But just before I let you go, Prof, going by all that you've seen in Brazil, what your work with your colleagues, at the Presidential Implementation Panel, can you forecast Nigeria's future? Perhaps, maybe the next 4 years, perhaps, maybe the next 8 years, if all things being equal, some of the plans we already have, some of the policies on ground, some of the regulations in place, if we were to put all of that together, all things being equal and everything goes well, whether we're looking at areas like egg and meat production or industry, or whether we're even looking at milk and dairy industry production. Prof,
Look,
What do you forecast?
The forecast is that, given what we saw in Brazil, even in the poultry sector, number one, Brazil has conquered poverty. It has conquered food insecurity, because the cost of production of chicken and beef, Brazil holds the record of the lowest cost in the world. Because of what? All the ingredients required for production of poultry, soybean, corn, they are in abundance and cheap. So you can easily afford to buy and feed your animals the byproduct of sugarcane that are used for feeding animals is in abundance. So therefore, what I see happening in Nigeria is that a private sector-driven approach that will be devoid of bureaucratic frustrations is going to set in for Nigeria. And because Mr. President, for example, is the chairman of the Presidential Reforms Committee, and this committee is to guide and to provide, data and all the issues that have been raised. About 120 indicators of success have been identified by the committee. And one of them is the creation of Ministry of Livestock Development. And if you are able to do other things, including the 25 objectives that have been identified, before the end of the next 2-3 years, the impact will be monumental. The consciousness of Nigerians about the opportunities in the livestock sector will be brought to the fore. Even what you are doing now, we must give kudos to NTA to have harvested us fresh on arrival from Brazil.
From Brazil?
To come and
fresh
tell Nigerians, to tell Nigerians after traveling for 72 hours, and then here to tell Nigerians that the opportunities that the livestock sector offers Nigerians by Mr. President is legendary.
Prof.
I'm very confident that in a couple of years to come, Nigerians will appreciate Mr. President for doing them this great favor, because we have opened another chapter that is either to
another vista of economic opportunities.
Of economic opportunity.
Prof,
So
we
must of necessity be able to feed ourselves, satisfy our protein content, because Mr. President is lamenting that we can give our children 1 egg a day, 1 pint of milk a day.
True.
And that is something that should be taken for granted, because when you produce, we are now having a situation whereby through genetic engineering, some of our products are able to produce 10 liters per day.
Prof, we will be
compared
engaging
to 45 liters and 40 liters that other imported or other foreign breeds are able to produce. So we have a business for genetic engineering, we have business for pastoral production, we have business for those who want to produce beef, for meat, for milk, for everything. The door is open for Nigerians.
Prof, there's no better way to end this conversation, but this is such an optimistic note. Hopefully things pan out as we envisage and as we envision. Professor Mohammed Kuta, agriculture and forestry expert to University of Ibadan and secretary to the Presidential Implementation Panel for the new Livestock Development Ministry. I'd like to thank you so much for coming on our program. And Prof, welcome back from Brazil.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. And we must appreciate President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for this opportunity. Nigerians will be grateful and will remain appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. In wrapping up this episode, a quick reminder that Nigeria's livestock sector stands poised for transformation, and this is urging investors, entrepreneurs, and stakeholders to seize the opportunity and key into innovative solutions that can unlock the sector's vast potential. Now's the time to invest in Nigeria's livestock future and be a part of a transformative journey that promises prosperity, growth, and self-sufficiency. And that's it for now. Join us same time next week for more on Insight. In fact, we hope to have an interesting gender balance, the boy-girl-child development debate, and focus more on the development of the boy-child in Nigeria. That promises, of course, to be insightful. So do keep a date with us. Well, wherever you are, while you're at it, do make sure to keep positively engaged and keep safe. And best of the season to you out there. My name is Namdi Odipo. I'll see you again next week. Bye for now.